Hello, everyone. Today I would like to talk about the Electric Light Orchestra. When I was a little kid back in the day, I would listen to, radio stations, usually top 40. That would be my choice. There are two, three of them locally. And then I usually like to switch around as well, mainly because I wasn't a big fan of commercials. The top 40 commercials, those radio stations would when they have commercials, they would be pretty long. Seems like 5-10 minutes. I mean, it was probably wasn't that long, but it seemed like forever. So I would usually like change the dial to different radio stations, and then whatever song I would hear and I would like, I'll just leave it on there. And usually my first two go-to station would be a classic rock radio station that would any music outside the top 40 would be classic rock. And there were three radio stations locally that would play classic rock. Now, the main one and the one I would listen to most often for classic rock was a dedicated classic rock station, right? So it would be made majority 60s through the 70s rock bands. Another station would be more like an oldies radio station where they play Elvis, Motown, all kinds of oldies, but that would also include some classic rock music. And the third radio station would be more contemporary at the time, so they would play alternative rock music that was, being made at the time, so like late 80s, 90s type of music. And they would also play some classic rock as well. So when I do switch over to those stations, and that's where my knowledge and learning of music, of these bands and songs, when I was growing up, the majority of that came from listening to music from the radio stations. And then for the classic rock, I I enjoyed a lot of bands back then, and there's one band in particular that they play once in a while, and they play a few hits from there, and that band was ELO. Now, ELO, I wasn't, and still not a huge fan of them, or a dedicated, gotta get every album type fan. I did like a few songs, one of them being Evil Woman, and I absolutely love that song. I don't know how to explain it, but that when that song comes on, I just gotta like listen to it, concentrate, you know. But that song got me into ELO. Now the radio stations when they play ELO, besides Evil Woman, they would play some other hits too, like Strange Magic, songs like that. So they would also play another song that for some reason I never got the name of. I don't know why. Maybe it was I was unfortunate that every time I would hear this song, it's like at the beginning of a 7 to 10 song set or something like that. So I would never hear the DJ say who it was. Well, when I first heard the song, I didn't know who it was, but I really, really, really wanted to know. Really liked it. Just never got a chance to finish this set, so I would hear that. Eventually, this particular song, I would get to know that it's from ELO, but I still never got the name of the track. So it took me like forever, and eventually I didn't mind. Eventually, I knew I was going to buy their albums one way or another, and hopefully that song would be on there. And that first album, I eventually asked my parents to help me get was this song. So, the Electric Light Orchestra's Greatest Hits. Okay, so this was a great album. I mean, it's their first greatest hits from what I understand, and it's kind of a short track listing, maybe 10 songs or so. And they had Evil Woman. That's like the very first song, and I would play that and put on repeat. That's how much I love this song. But pretty much that entire greatest hits album was, it's good. I can listen top to bottom, and I know pretty much every song. I think every song was played on the radio as well, except that one song that I was looking for was not in this greatest hits album, but I didn't mind. You know, it's like my first greatest hits. Didn't mind listening to it. So sometime later, I was eyeing another compilation from ELO, and it was a double CD set. It was called Strange Magic, which I have also. I actually saved up quite a bit and bought. It's this one. Now it's a double CD set. Okay. I bought this. It came out for a while, and it took me a while to save up and buy, because back then CDs back then were pretty expensive, and we're talking about ELO, a greatest hits package, a double set. Those cost quite a bit, at least 15, maybe $20 back then per album. And don't talk about I don't want to get into box sets. Now box sets are, those are way out of range. But this ELO set I've been eyeing for a while. And remember, this is at the time when, Google and stuff was still not around. So, but I was banking on getting this set, this double CD, which I did. And mainly because I wanted to get that song I was talking about that I absolutely love, and I hear a lot on the radio stations. As well as they also had the later years from ELO, so like the Don't Bring Me Down, Do Ya, those songs that came out later after that first greatest hits package. I knew it was going to be on there, so that's why I waited. And so eventually I was able to buy that album, the Strange Magic, the best of ELO, that double CD set. And I waited till not only had enough money to buy it, but I was waiting for it to be on sale as well. So I wasn't going to pay full price for it. So I think I paid at least, it was like $10, maybe $12, but definitely lower than whatever the retail price was at the time. So I didn't mind, went for it, came home. First thing, there's two CDs, so I put one in there, listened to the whole thing. I knew the songs that were on there, majority of the ones I already had in greatest hits, and the ones I didn't know, okay, kind of, I was hoping that that song I really wanted was on there. Took the first CD out, put the second one in, listened to the whole thing. Each song that I didn't know I was listening, I was kind of disappointed. And eventually when the CD finished, so both CDs, we're talking about 2 hours worth of music at least, I was totally disappointed, because that one song that I really wanted was not on that album. And I didn't understand why. Yes, it did have the other songs that was missing from the first greatest hits, but I don't know, it wasn't on there. So after that, I really haven't really gotten into ELO as much outside of anything on a radio station again, because I was really disappointed. I didn't get the song I wanted. And after a while, I decided to go, take a look again. It just happened to be, I was at Tower Records. I don't know if you remember that, but Tower Records, I was looking for albums just to see what's out, what's new, and I passed by the ELO section, and I decided to ask one of the, I guess the workers at Tower Records to, hey, do you know ELO? And that guy said, yeah, he knows ELO. And then I described to him the song I really wanted. I just didn't know what the name of was. The guy mentioned, yes, he knew exactly what the song was. He didn't know the name as well, per se, but he knew what album it was from. And he told me that, hey, this is the album to get, and it was actually on sale as well. Most of the CDs were, at that time, were on sale. So, okay, I went and got the album, took it home. This is the album I bought. Discovery. So, came home, opened it up, put it on, listen to each song. There's a few songs I already knew. They're hit songs, and then everything else. Once it got to the end of the original album, and there's like 3 bonus tracks, I was very disappointed because I didn't hear the song I wanted to hear. I was kind of hoping maybe the 3 bonus tracks had it, but I highly doubt it because they were bonus. And from what I understood, they weren't released. And yes, going through the last 3 bonus tracks, wasn't on there. So after this, I decided to no more ELO. I don't. Maybe I was mistaken. It wasn't ELO because remember, I never caught the name of the song, and I assumed it was ELO that created it. Just never caught the name, and maybe I was just wrong all along. So fast forward a few more years, and I went to Circuit City. Remember Circuit City? This is still, I think, before the bankruptcy era, but so I went to Circuit City. Now, these stores, Circuit City, Tower Records, Best Buy, you name it, they always had a pretty decent sized section of music, right? So it would be all CDs. They would have racks of CDs and artists in alphabetical order. They would also have a side section of albums that were like box sets and so forth. And then there would be a bin or 2 bins like sitting either outside the main music section, and sometimes it's usually closer to the checkout aisle. I don't know why. Maybe it was one of those they didn't know where to put it and that's where they would put it. But it would be a bin of music CDs that were cheap. I mean, it wasn't because they were on sale or anything. It's because the record label and the artist, they would put out like a cheaper version of albums or albums that weren't popular, I guess. I don't know. But they're usually like some type of compilation album that is kind of a very small, is like a subset of the main one you want to get. I would call them like budget albums, budget CDs for this. And going back to that discovery, that was one of the few albums I actually bought that was not a compilation album. I've been always a person that for an artist, I would always buy some type of greatest hits compilation, a best of compilation, anthology, that kind of thing. Mainly because I wanted to get the entire set of songs that I would know. It might not be all of it, but at least I would know most of it, as well as other songs that I don't know, and that would be my kind of my introduction into that artist. And also it's mainly because I don't know much of the music from that time, like that came way before my time. So anyway, ELO and like before the 90s, technically speaking, that I would prefer to get like a compilation album. And then if I really liked it, I would deep dive and maybe get their albums themselves, the original albums, and then just get into it. But anyway, going to this budget bin, they're usually like, again, they're like not as good as the albums you would want to get in the main section. And these budget CDs, they're priced around $5 to $7, so under $10 of a normal price of a CD. And those are the bins I usually avoid. I mean, I originally looked into them, and then I noticed that majority of those albums suck, or they're not something I'm interested in, so I always pass by. But for some reason, I was looking at this bin at Circuit City, and I think the main reason why is they're trying to clearance that. It was like all CDs like less than $5, and it's like, okay, take a look. Because at that time, $5, like anything less than $5, you would have to usually go to like a used CD place and go for something like that. But this was at Circuit City. This is brand new. What the heck? Just give it a shot. Check up on something, and What do you know? There's an ELO CD I've never seen before. And I didn't recognize it. I looked in the back, the track listing, and I know I knew about maybe over 50% of the songs because I have them on the greatest hits, and I kind of knew then it was some type of compilation album, but it was really badly done. I mean, it didn't have Evil Woman first of all. If for ELO, any album that has Evil Woman, I wouldn't mind because if I didn't like the rest, hey, at least I got Evil Woman to listen to and put on repeat. So it didn't have Evil Woman, but I think it had Strange Magic and other songs I recognize. And then there are 4 or 5 songs that I did not recognize at all. From having the greatest hits as well as the best of double CD set. I did not want to, I was 50-50, did not want to buy it because, again, I had majority of the songs, they didn't have Evil Woman, and I didn't want to get burned again, but, under $5, what the heck, decided to go ahead and purchase it. So I did. Now, it took me a few days to actually open it up because I was still contemplating, hey, can I return it? If you CDs back then, and probably now too, once you open it, you can't return it no matter what, right? So like that Discovery ELO CD, once I opened it, I listened to the whole album. I wanted to return it badly, but I couldn't because I already played it. I already opened it and played it. But anyway, so I went ahead, what the heck, it's less than $5, opened it, played it, and then again, each song, the songs I knew I already knew, but I didn't skip. I just, I always like to listen all the way down. And then the songs I didn't know, and I looked it up, and then when they played, I was disappointed because it wasn't a song that I really wanted. Till track 9. That's a song. All these years, trying to find ELO, going searching through, buying their albums and so forth, asking around. That was the song. It's called Fire on High. And it's on this really, really, it's conspicuous album. It's called Burning Bright. Okay. Looking at the cover, I couldn't tell this was a compilation, but looking at the songs and in the back, it would say 1975, 76, 77. When you have all those years, it's like some type of compilation album. And also on the back of that CD, it said Sony Music Special Products. So Sony Music Special Products, usually that tells you it's a budget compilation or budget CD regardless. It was made, to be cheap. So that's why one of those things where I was kind of, but the song is on it. And finally I got the song I wanted from ELO. Now the question is, why is Fire on a High on this compilation CD? And years later, and up till to this day, I always check to see if there's compilation ELO albums that later years. So let's say from the mid 2000s and on. Okay, so around the time that I bought Discovery, they also ELO released a compilation album as well, a single one. I think the very best of or the greatest hits, I forgot, but it's like the definitive 1 CD collection of it, and I never bought it because I knew I think I had majority if not all the songs from the double CD set, so I knew it wasn't on there. And anyway, later on I looked at other compilations. There was another Essential ELO, which I think is my Strange Magic double CD set with maybe a few more songs added. As well as there's a 3 CD set and maybe some other compilations, I don't know, but none of them have Fire on High, and I just don't understand why. Again, Fire on High, I heard this song on the radio, and as part of ELO, I've heard it a few times. Well, I wouldn't say few, many times. So of their entire catalog, I would hear that song, Evil Woman, Strange Magic, the hits, right? So to me, this song was a hit. Now, it may not be a hit when it first came out, but if it's being played on the radio and frequently, I know it's a classic rock radio station, and whatnot, but it's been played on the radio. I hear it on TV sometimes. I don't know if it's like a sporting event or something, but they would play that, the guitar riff and so forth of that. So I recognize it. I just don't know why it's just not on any compilation album outside of the one I just showed you, Burning Bright, the budget compilation album. And it's not on the major expensive ones of it. So for Fire and High, you would either have to get the original album that came out, which was Face the Music, which I think Evil Woman was on that too, so I might have to get that. But or that Burning Bright compilation CD. Nothing else, and I don't know why. What made me thought I was trying to think of why. So the first thing is that maybe it's a record label change. They were transitioning when the song came out, and they just didn't have the license agreement to do it. No, that's not the case. Again, it's on Face the Music. It's there's that the label they were on for quite a bit, for a while, if not forever. So there was no change of labels. Second thing I could think of was maybe someone else wrote it because it was an instrumental, and it's one of those that maybe they were playing someone else's song and they just didn't have the license agreement to be allowed to be played on a compilation type of or be put on a compilation. No, Jeff Lynne wrote it, so that has nothing to do with that. So the only thing I can think of why Fire and High is not on any greatest hits, best of, anthology is because they hate the song. That's the only thing I can think of. Now, maybe hate is too strong. Maybe they disliked it, or they were indifferent. Maybe they didn't think it was worthy of a greatest hits or worthy of being on a best of compilation. Now, greatest hits, I get. Greatest hits, if it wasn't a hit, like a radio hit, it might not be on it. But again, I've heard this song many times on the radio, and then different stations too. It's not just the classic rock. There's the oldies and so forth. They would play this. The other thing I can think of is the best of. Now, a best of compilation is usually, it doesn't have to be all the hits. They might include like deep cuts from albums, or non-hits, but either the artist liked or the audience that listens to music liked. That's what I always think of a best of compilation. Anthology is similar, it's just more comprehensive. And for some reason, that's not on there either. And I would assume Fire and High would be at least a popular choice from the audience. I mean, it's again, it's being played. And heck, look this up. Fire and High. A lot of people like this. I mean, they would consider for sure a top 10 ELO song. So why is it not in any of the major compilations? Again, they must really hate it or just indifferent, just don't like it. And compilations like those, you usually would have to ask the artist to give them input. And if ELO is saying, hey, this is it, and no Fire and High, then to me, I really think that it's because they just don't like it, or they just don't find it worthy as a good song to put on their either greatest hits or best of. So I don't know why. I mean, if that's the case, that must be it. And personally, I think not only is Fire on High a top 5 ELO song, sometimes a top 2 depending on the mood, but never 1, because Evil Woman always holds that spot for me. But when I'm listening to ELO, Evil Woman, and then usually Fire and High would be the next song I would love to listen to, right? So top two, but top five definitely, for me, a top five ELO song. Not only is it a top five for myself, and I think a lot of people would say top 10 as well, but I also think it's one of the top 10 for sure, best rock instrumental of all time, okay? Of all time. Maybe you might have others, but maybe top 20, I don't know, but for sure one of the top rock instrumentals of all time. So I don't know why this is not on any compilation album, major ones, the good ones from ELO that puts out. I don't know why it's actually put on Burning Bright. Maybe it's a compilation album that had no input from ELO and the record label Sony Epic. It's like, let's just put some budget version on there, and we never put ELO, and we don't have to worry about any input from ELO. So we just put Fire on a High on there, and maybe that's why it's on that compilation. If it's because it's a hit in the US but not anywhere else outside the US, so what? Just create a compilation album, greatest hits for the US, and then do one for, a European market if it wasn't a hit there, Asian market if it wasn't a hit there. I think a lot of artists do that. A lot of record labels do that. They have separate compilations for different regions, right? I mean, just do that. So again, none of this makes any sense. I don't know why Fire on High, one of their best songs and best rock instrumentals of all time, is not on any greatest hits or best of compilation, and that really ticks me off. I don't get it. Again, if Fire on High was on a latest remastered compilation, I wouldn't mind buying that compilation album from ELO, even though I have practically all their songs right now, or the songs I care about. So anyway, tell me what you think. Thank you. Appreciate it.